Welcome back, folks. This is a weird one. You got to follow me on this path. This one's a little different. Welcome into I'm kind of glad and relieved that the regular season's over edition of the Always Irish Show. I promise I'll explain. It makes sense in my head. I want to see if any of you guys are with me. YouTube, you're already there. Hit subscribe if you haven't. I appreciate it very much. Give the video a thumbs up. That helps me as well. Notifications on. That way you'll be alerted every time a new episode drops. You don't want to miss it, do you? Twitter, search bar Always Irish or at Always Irish Inc. Emails alwaysirishnd@gmail.com. Audio only anywhere you want me. You can find me. You don't want to look at my face. Totally understandable, but you can still get the information MP3 style, all right? Call in line 312-900-8815. Give me a call about what you've heard and seen. Okay, Fighting Irish Wire, check it out. I've been pumping out some content. The off season gives you flexibility when you're writing. You can look at bigger picture stuff. You're not boxed into the week-to-week daily grind of everything. It's kind of freeing. You can sit back and write what you want, big picture. It's enjoyable. Go check it out. So I admit, this is kind of an odd topic. It's a weird title. It's not what you would expect from somebody like me. Somebody like me that's perpetually consumed by Notre Dame footballness 24/7, 365 for the last 30 years of my life. Obsessed. You all know that. You can't have this kind of show and not be obsessed. So you may sit there and say, John, how could you say that you're glad the season's over? We love Notre Dame football. All we do all summer is wait for it to come. And we salivate over every single play, every opportunity to watch our boys in them gold helmets. What do you mean, you lunatic? You may ask. You're fair in assuming I'm a lunatic, by the way. Here's how and why I say this, and I genuinely mean it. It's not hyperbole. It's not exaggeration. It's not any of that. It makes perfect sense. Here's what I mean. And I've heard this from other people. Maybe it's just people in my circle, but I have been in contact with multiple people who feel this way. Here's the deal. Okay. If you paid close attention, some of the fan base did and others did not. But if you paid close enough attention entering this year for Notre Dame, you should have known there were huge holes on this roster entering the year that were going to give us problems. If you were paying attention at all, you should have known that and expected that. Okay? Number 5 to start the year was largely due to having a really solid year before. All right? That didn't mean you had a top 5 roster this year. Now, for some teams in the top 5, it does. But when Notre Dame got positioned there, it was largely off what they accomplished last year. I mean, you can't. Listen, the same roster didn't come back from the one last year. We had no quarterback. Like, come on, all right? So just because we started top 5 doesn't mean you have a top 5 roster. And I really had a problem with people all year saying, John, Marcus inherited a top 10 program and look what he did with it. It isn't that simple. It isn't that simple. It's a lazy argument. It is not that simple of a discussion. So when I say I'm relieved that the regular season's over, I mean this. You have got to know where you're going and how to get there. You got to know where you're starting from, right? That's what I mean by this whole discussion. In order to know where you're going and how to get there, you have to know where you're starting from. That's what this year was all about. An initial calibration of the Freeman era, taking stock of where we're starting at. A baseline from which to analyze and grow. We needed to have that, and it was going to be this year. This in-between year was very annoying to me. Just all year, very annoying. You could see flashes of what this needs to become, but it was perpetually being held back by the gaps in the roster and the problems. All right? I want to fast forward a couple of years. That's what all year I was feeling like, can we just get two more years down the path here? So we're not dealing with some of these amateur hour issues Notre Dame should never have that we were in the middle of this year. Seriously. So with Marcus, here's the fairest way I know how to look at this. Each year that we get another year further away from Swamp Things recruiting and influence, the more pressure I place on Marcus to deliver and deliver big. That is the fairest way I know how to judge Marcus Freeman, is that little fulcrum point. Every day we get further away from Swamp Things' influence on this program, more pressure shifts to Marcus. It's more his DNA on the program, his talent, his coaches, his everything. That is how I ask you guys to analyze this. Every step away from Kelly is more pressure on Freeman, more his influence. I know we all want instant results. Everybody does. In the Notre Dame program, just people in life. We don't want to wait. We want it. We want something now. Okay? But look at what was dropped on this staff in the quarterback room. And my God bless poor Chancey Stuckey in the wide receiver room. God bless him. He had the toughest job, toughest assistant job by far this year. Just what he had to deal with. So I know we all want instant results. It's just some of these position groups were not in a condition that allow this operation to run and look the way we need it to run and look like. This roster will look totally different in 2 years, and I say that in the best way possible. Give it 2 years, this roster is going to be unrecognizable. So when I say I'm relieved, I truly mean it. I had a very hard time all year analyzing what was going on in front of my eyes in person at a game or watching on TV and separating out bad coaching, bad prep this year, that week in that game versus not enough talent that was on the team that dropped in Marcus's lap. And where to place that blame? Brian Kelly's operation, or do I blame Marcus? Or is it an in-between blend of both, which is frustrating in its own right because you want to blame something. When it doesn't go right, you want to point to go, that's it. So much of this year, I had a hard time separating out what is just bad prep work and preparation this week that led to Marshall or led to Stanford. And how much of this is just the talent is amateur hour at the most important positions, and it isn't even real life. Like, not even real life. At some of the most important positions in the game now that put up all the points. Wide receiver, quarterback come to mind right away. Right away. And so, here's the thing. Nobody likes to hear me blame the last guy. When Marcus is on the sideline and things don't go well, I get it. It sounds like a loser argument, and nobody wants to hear me blame the last guy. Yeah, it's like Marcus is there on the sideline. We're blaming him. It just isn't that simple. This year, moving forward, it will become more simple to do that. But this in-between of feeling like Marcus was held hostage by the way Kelly recruited and developed and built the program was super frustrating for me. And I imagine super frustrating for Marcus. He just can't say it. He just can't say it. He's got to be frustrated as hell this year with some of what got dropped into his lap with not enough time to flip it, and it became his problem. It was already going to be rough enough if Buckner was healthy. You had no idea if he was good and what you were going to get out of him. That was already in our ideal situation. It wasn't ideal. And then we didn't even get that because of the injury. Just a total frustration at the most important spot in individual sports. So I can't wait to be done with that. I want Marcus's players, Marcus's coaches, so I have a clean slate to judge, and it's on him. This in-between period where you have to figure out in your mind how many of these problems are what Kelly left and how many of them are our new guy that he needs to get better at coaching or whatever. I had trouble deciding those percentages all year, and it was frustrating. It was so frustrating to have to figure out in your mind how much of what I see is on this guy and how much of it's on what was left. That is a uncomfortable place to be. And then I end up on the defensive when I blame some of what Kelly left. And then people are like, John, Marcus is your guy. You have a crush on him. You're not being as hard on him as you should be. I struggle with that. Nobody could tell me a lot of our struggles this year were not Brian Kelly's fault. No one can tell me that. It's just, it's illogical. It's illogical. And I say this all the time. You know who else also knew there was trouble on this roster in main areas? Brian Kelly himself. I know the money in the LSU, that's a great job, and there's a lot of reasons he would be interested and anybody would. But don't tell me a part of it wasn't Kelly knew he was going to have a major quarterback problem. He's already not good at that at Notre Dame. Didn't want to deal with it. Get out of Dodge and avoid that problem. Okay? I see it that way. So that's what I mean when I say I'm relieved this season's over. It was an awkward calibration year, in-between year. Frustrating. So now, this is all trending up, folks. More talent's coming. Effort is actually being made in recruiting now. Actual effort. By effort, I mean trying and building relationships with these guys. It isn't just quarterbacks, folks. It isn't just quarterbacks. Some of these recruits, I know them and their families. Other people in my circle know them and their families. Brian Kelly did not build those relationships appropriately. It is amazing how well Notre Dame's been able to recruit with Kelly doing it the way he's doing it. Some of these guys committed to Notre Dame and barely knew Kelly, but believed in Notre Dame and their families did. It's astounding, the laziness from that guy. Astounding. The quarterback one's the most obvious. You know, Kaiser saying he barely ever met Kelly, committed, talked to him a few minutes, and that's it. Like, it's astounding he was able to recruit, though, as good as he did with the minimal effort he put in. And not only that he put in, but required by his staff minimal effort too. You can't be the head guy and be lazy and expect all the other guys not to be. So it's amazing he did what he did, recruiting the way he did. But effort's actually being made now, appropriate effort, like the effort you need to be in the mix. And it's going to show year after year, building depth and talent. You're going to see it. It's happening. It's coming. Top two priorities to me, still quarterback, wide receiver. Other areas still need help, but they're not in as obvious of a bad position as those two groups in terms of distance from Notre Dame to elite. Those are by far the two groups in our program that have the furthest to go. And they're critically important. Anybody winning playoff games has those two areas figured out. They do. Okay? So here's the plan. flip the roster. Marcus settles in, evaluates the staff appropriately, and in a couple years, you have way more talent. Marcus isn't a new guy anymore, and then the new playoff starts. It all lines up. It all lines up. The path is a good one, you guys. The path is a good one. But when I say I'm relieved this season's over, I mean it. This was a calibration starting point, and it was ultimately frustrating all year. Oh, so frustrating. And having that debate internally and with other fans of how much of what went wrong is on Kelly and what he left versus what Marcus is doing right or wrong. I'm sick of having that debate. Every year we get further from Swamp Thing, the more clear this picture gets. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Okay? So we're trending up, folks. But when I say I'm relieved, I mean it. Because you got to know where you're starting from to know where you need to get. And that's what this year was about. Washing out a lot of the Kelly-ness and taking a clear-eyed view of where this is at. It's going to be exciting, folks. But I am glad this year's over. This is going to be the roughest year Freeman has. So many moving parts. I am glad it's over, and I mean that. Have a good one.